Hello, friends. Hi. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to Wednesday stream. I hope you're having a good week so far, and that wherever you are, the weather is treating you okay. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, happy time zone. I hope you're having a gentle day so far. And if you're in morning, like in the morning, like I am, you're just getting your day started. And yeah, thank you for joining. Hi, April. How's it going? How have you been? And yeah, we're just gonna take it easy today. As you can see, I have my sketchbooks out. I'm gonna do a little bit of painting with fountain pen inks. I have my tea, so we're just gonna keep it kind of chill. Last Wednesday, I painted this actually on stream, and I was using my ink samples, and I thought, you know what, I want to do it again today. I just want to go through. This is sort of my collection of ink samples as it stands, and I just want to remind myself to, go through my stash, use it. Some of these inks I don't necessarily like or will ink up my pens with, just because, they're colors or shades that I don't really typically write with. And so they're perfect for painting. And if you're in kind of the same kind of boat where you're very particular about how, what colors, how dark the shade has to be in order for you to write with it, then, leave those inks aside and remind yourself to play with them, right? To paint with them, to swatch them just for fun, to throw them on paper, make some inky messes. Yeah, I love I love that palette too. It's really good. Hi Inky, how's it going? Oh, your illustrations are inspiring me to pick up my Tombos and inks. I'm so glad, April. I'm so glad. That makes me happy to hear. um, I'm registered for the drawing class tomorrow. Yay, Inky. Awesome. You're looking forward to it? I'm looking forward to it too. It's going to be so much fun. For those of you who don't know, I'm teaching a workshop, an online Zoom class tomorrow with partnership through Plaza Art and Tombow USA. And so it's just going to be, drawing with their fine liners, their mono drawing pens in a color set. And yeah, we're just going to have a little bit of fun. So if you actually, this is the card. This is the card that we're going to create together. So I think it should be fun. If you aren't registered for it, or you can't make it, or for whatever reason, just know that it will be, the replay will be available on YouTube through Plaza Art, who's the retailer. And so you can rewatch it again, or if you miss part of it, or for whatever reason you can't be there. So don't worry about it. But yes, that should be fun. I'm a little bit nervous, right? Like as workshops go, I'm always like, even with streams, I get a little bit nervous because I'm excited, but also I just want to be able to encourage and inspire people who attend, especially if they come to a workshop thinking like this might be hard, or I might not be able to do this, or I'm not an artist, or all those challenges and all those obstacles that we put in our own path. I just want to be able to work through that with everyone, and in the end show them that, yes, you can make this kind of art. You can be creative. You can make art, even though you may not think of yourself as an artist. You are one, and you can do it. So, yeah, I hope I can kind of convey that. And so that's the other reason why I love doing these streams, is because, I can show the process. And while it may not be something that you can just pick up and do in your first go, it's one of those things that you can practice and continue doing. And at some point, I promise you'll become confident and it will feel less awkward. And I think for me, it's all about confidence and just doing the thing, doing the art. So, yeah, so that's what we'll do today with painting. And we can talk about anything, actually. We can talk about stationery, we can talk about fountain pens and inks. Let me know any new acquisitions or anything that you're excited about, that you're using or want to use. Yeah, we can chat. And if you have any questions, let me know. Also, throw me on in the background if you have to work or, do the adulting thing. It is all good. And if you're watching the replay, of course, thank you so much. Appreciate you as always. So I haven't actually decided what inks I'm going to paint with, which is totally fine because I think it's just one of those vibes thing, right? Like sometimes I just look at my inks and I think, you know what, today I feel like painting with this. And so last week I thought, you know what, I kind of feel like pink, cheery, like cherry blossom vibe. And today I feel like maybe it's kind of like, let's do a light palette again. We don't have to do anything too moody or too dark or too wintry. It is kind of sunny here in the Vancouver area, so we could do some sort of, lighter shades. And I always tend to pick out about 3 shades when I do flowers, and then a green. So I'm just going to find a green to work with. Some of the ink samples I have are, there's this Sidewalk of Gum. It's a Robert Oster and Atlas Stationers collaboration. Sailor Manyo Fuji. That's actually a really nice one. That could be a contender. Oh, I like this one. Rohrer and Klingner Alt Goldgrün. It's a green. It's a really nice green. So maybe we'll do that one. It's a little bit of a darker green. I also have this green, Sailor 767. That's a dark green. Let's see, Ambered Adobe from Birmingham Pen Co. As they all fall over. There's the Pelican Apricot, Edelstein Apricot. That one's kind of nice as well. We have some purples. Could do a purple. Irishizuku Tsutsuji. Let's see. Colorverse Walk the Dog is a nice green. I've used this before as well. That's a nice green. Then I have some pinks, like Rose Quartz, Sailor Shikiri Yozakura, and the Sailor Pink that I used last week. We have some teals. Wearingeul Robinson Crusoe is a really, really nice color. Wearingeul Lost is also really nice. I think I painted with this recently, actually. Then we have Wearingeul I'm a Cat. It's a nice shimmer ink. I'm not sure if I want to do flowers with that. Let's see. Kobe Alice's Dream. I like this ink is really nice. It's like a blue purple. Also have this sample. It's a Montblanc Ladies Edition Pearl. That's a really nice pink. Maybe we'll do that one as well. I haven't painted with that in a little while. And then this one is an orange shimmer ink. It's Dominant Industry and Wonder Pens collaboration called Ginger Chicken. And their Ginger Chicken is like an orange ink that they came out with. And then they did a special limited edition release with a shimmer. So you can see the shimmer on the bottom. It's like a gold. So orange with gold is kind of nice, actually. That's nice. So yeah, let's do a couple of these, a few of these. All right. We're going to do a pink, a Montblanc pink, a Wearingeul teal or light blue, Actually, it's more like light blue. Sailor Manyo Fuji. Just kind of like a blue purple. Maybe like a light purplish. And then a green. So I'm just going to throw this into these inks into my palette. And then my paint palette. I think this is actually going to be a bubblegum pink, Ladies Edition Pearl. So that'll make our palette a little bright. And then we have our green. So yeah, I think that'll be nice. It'll be bright and cheery and more springish like. Hi, bye, Apple Tater. How are you doing? Good morning. Okay, so first I'm gonna paint with these inks in my Tomoe River Paper, the Everyday Book sketchbook from Galen Leather. And then while that dries, I also have a watercolor sketchbook. It's a Hahnemühle landscape. It's sort of like an A6 maybe, landscape sketchbook. And so it's kind of nice because I can sort of jump from, you know, the way that I'm painting it in my TRP notebook versus in my watercolor notebook, and just kind of contrast it a little bit. And I'm trying to practice or bring my painting practice to watercolor paper a little bit more this year, just because I'm so used to kind of doing it in TRP or journals that I have. But I do want to make sure that I do use watercolor paper and enjoy my inks on different types of paper, because if you're using Tomoe River or fountain pen friendly paper to paint with fountain pen inks, it's nice, but you have to still kind of limit the amount of ink that you're throwing on. Whereas with watercolor paper, it does behave like you would if you were painting. And so you can throw a lot more ink, but also a lot more water. And that way you can play around with blending, with mixing, and sort of the, you know, different techniques of watercolor painting, essentially. So that's partly why I'm also doing it on watercolor paper, just to kind of compare and contrast how those inks behave on those two types of papers, and how they can kind of look different in terms of the properties that they're reflecting back. So if you're using shimmer inks or high sheeners, they can look different on fountain pen friendly paper versus something like watercolor paper, especially if you're adding or layering in some more water or other inks. So it's just kind of interesting. So I do a little bit of both if I can, and if I have the time for it. Definitely something I can do on stream. So that's just kind of fun that way. So first I'm going to, let's see, I think I'm going to do the pink. That's sort of the main color, or the focal point. So I'll do a little swatch. Especially because it reminds me of, you know, roses and peonies and other kinds of flowers. type of pink shade is always really, really pretty. So that's the pink. And then I'm going to add on just a little bit of the Wearingeul light blue Robinson Crusoe. The pink has already kind of dried on the paper, but that's okay. I'll just layer the blue on top a little bit. And then while that's wet, I'm going to add a little bit of the Sailor Manyo Fuji. Just like a blurple or, you know, light purple. Or purple gray maybe. That's a very nice, it's a very nice ink actually. And I can't forget to swatch them. These colors are really pretty already. They're very soft. Then I'm going to add the green now. So that's the Goldgrün from Rohrer and Klingner. Swatch that. So just in case you're curious, I do like to use round paintbrushes when it comes to painting in general, but also with fountain pen inks, just because I'm used to and like the shape, the natural shape that you can get with that brush. But I also like to push myself a little bit with tapered brushes or angled brushes too. Similar to trying different nibs on fountain pens, because even if I may not have that perfect angle or the way I'm holding it might not be the you know, the ideal way that you hold this brush or to get, you know, different angles, but I do like kind of pushing myself to try out and explore different angles and using different brushes to get them. And I do like having one paintbrush per color if I'm doing, you know, like a small amount of inks or paints. So in this case, I'm only using 4 inks, so I can do one paintbrush per color. Not that it's necessary. You can always, you know, if you're using like a water brush or something, always you can dip it in, you know, your glass jar of water, and then move on to the next color. The other fun part about painting with inks is that you can sort of mix them if you wanted to. They don't have to stay true to the inks that you're using. And this is another reason why I like to swatch my inks, is that if I do blend or mix them on paper and then they sort of, you know, create their own shades, at least I know what I started off with. And then I can move on from there. So, but it's not necessary to use different brushes. You can use one brush if you want to, and it's not necessary to use a certain shape of brush. Just whatever you kind of want to play around with is fine. What I do recommend though is if you like to paint with watercolor paints, but also want to try painting with fountain pen inks, I would suggest using different brushes for inks, especially if you're not sure if they'll have shimmer or other properties in them, or if they're pigmented. Just because sometimes it's harder to completely get rid of all the ink that's on a paintbrush. And yes, you can clean them and that's totally fine. But I kind of like just, rinsing them out and then reusing them and not worrying too much about, the use of ink in between, because I don't dip them straight into vials or bottles. They're on a paint palette, so I'm okay if they're kind of mixing and matching. But I don't really like mixing inks with paints. I keep them separate, so that's just a little tip maybe. Or if you're kind of particular like I am about these things, then maybe that's helpful. So for this one, I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to do a little bit more of a blue palette or focus, a little bit more in the blue. So this one is the Robinson Crusoe, and just kind of adding a little bit of water to spread out the ink a little bit, so it's not super saturated. Watercolor paper will absorb a lot of ink, so you can use a lot more if you want to, or you can dilute it a little bit just by adding water, either to your palette or directly on the paper, and then that way you can spread out your ink a little bit. And then as you do, it'll sort of soften it a little bit, and you'll get a muter tone, which is kind of nice too, to see inks that you're used to, when you're inking up a pen. They tend to be pretty saturated, and you sort of get that shade that is meant to be the ink color. But when you're painting with it, and you can sort of stretch it out a little bit. And while it's wet, I'm going to add a little bit of this Mount Fuji, or Sailor Manyo Fuji. Mount Fuji. I'll maybe blend a little bit in. With darker ink colors, I do like to layer in or add in a little bit of water just to lighten it up a little bit, because I will be drawing on top of this, and if it's really dark, then it's hard to see the lines, and so it's kind of just does look like a blob of ink, which is okay too. It's still fun, and you can still kind of see the outline of it and make out that it's probably a flower, but it's easier if, you can see those lines and make out that, you can, or make out the lines. So then I'll add the pink. Let's see. Then we have the green. Not a lot of green, not a lot of space anyways, but I won't add too much green. Just a little bit. But already you can see it's a pretty bright palette. So I'm gonna let that dry. Maybe let the water wander a little bit. And then let it dry. I feel like there's a little bit of space here, so because I have ink left over, I'm just gonna add a little bit more. A little bit of purple. There's a little bit of space here. So let's take up some of that space. And then maybe a little bit of that teal too. Or blue, teal blue. There and here. There we go. This water is not appetizing at all. So I'll just wait for this ink to dry a little bit, but I'll write the ink names in here. Just move some inks around. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'll just write down the ink because this is dry. So we'll do that. Okay, so this bubblegum pink is Montblanc Ladies Edition Pearl. Then we have Wearingeul Robinson Crusoe. Then we have Sailor Manyo Fuji. Then Rohrer and Klingner Out Goldgrün. I feel like this is very spring. Very spring. Not on purpose, maybe. I don't know. I think we're all over winter, to be honest. I think we're all good to go. Hi, Papa Gal. How's it going? You're streaking. 5 stream streak. Thanks, friend. So glad you've been here. You came here at 11 a.m. my time and it didn't show you live until just now? Weird. That's like I've been live for 30 minutes. You haven't missed a lot. You have missed 30 minutes of painting. But I did add a little bit to this. I'm just waiting for it to dry. And then I also painted this. But we'll see. I feel like I could add something here maybe, but let me just wait a little bit. But yes, I am painting with ink samples that I have sitting here. So I went with, I guess, the more spring theme or palette. Wearingeul Robinson Crusoe, which is like a really, really nice teal blue. And Montblanc Ladies Edition Pearl, which is like a bubblegum pinkish, maybe not as bubblegummy, but light pink. And then Rohrer and Klingner Goldgrün, which is a green. And then Sailor Manyo Fuji, which is a light purple, purple blue. So just making our way through ink samples lately, trying to kind of use them up, and I mean, I won't use them up anytime soon, but use them is the you refresh so many times too. Oh, Twitch, so frustrating sometimes. Like, yeah, sometimes I don't get notifications right when someone goes live, and if you're trying to watch on your phone too, it's finicky a little bit sometimes. But 30 minutes, yeah, it's a lot. You could have been here. It's good for your soul. Oh, I'm so glad. It's good for all of us, I think. Especially taking some time, just doing art, being creative, hanging out, chatting, right? Yeah, notification either. Weird. Yeah, that's odd. I know. The things. And sometimes too, if it's like the app is updating or something like that too, I find it's a little finicky. So when I open it up, it's like, oh, it's because you haven't updated your app, or yeah. And also I think too, Twitch is moving some things around or updating things on the back end, because I've noticed weird things happening too. So it's not just you. Is my point. But I'm glad you made it. In the end, you did. Tech is not my friend this week, but I'm here now. Yes, exactly. You're here. You made it. And we're all good. And we're still doing the thing. So you missed a little bit, but not all of it. So that's good. Hi, Indy. How's it going? Good afternoon. Just waiting for the ink to dry a little bit. So we have some fun, bright colors that I'm using today. Hey, Dragon Door, how's it going? Good afternoon. So these are some ink samples that I have. This is my ink sample situation. Which is actually pretty good, I think, for me anyways. I've had a lot more than that over the last few years, but I feel like I've kind of dwindled it down to just, this container of ink sample vials. But I think the majority of them, not all of them, but the majority of them, I probably wouldn't ink up my pens with, just because they're a shade or a color that I don't necessarily write with. And especially if they're too light to see. I'm looking at Lennon Toolbar Bubblegum, and Bubble Tea. If you have this ink, it's very, very light, very pretty in like a soft, muted way. But it's not one of those inks that I would write with. And so a lot of these inks are sort of, they're here because I like painting with them, right? The lighter and the more properties they have, the more fun they are to paint with. Love the shimmers, love, the light colors, love pinks and things like that. So that works well for flowers. It just may not work so well in my pens. And so this is kind of my situation in terms of, like, if I want to paint and I want to use up some of my ink samples, I come here. So that's what I'm doing, right? So I just picked out a few inks that I was drawn to today. And it turns out, because it's kind of sunny here, and while Canada is cold in general, the Vancouver area has been a little bit warmer than usual. Not a great thing overall, but I'm not complaining about the warmth. I kind of like the change from winter, cold, and rain and that kind of stuff. So while it's a little bit warm, I'm taking advantage of that in terms of like just going with bright, fun colors, and spring will be here soon, I hope. Well, changing of the seasons. So I'm impressed how you've been working through these samples. Look, I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit proud of myself. Yeah, I'm definitely... The other thing too is I've been very picky about the samples that I add to this collection, just because I don't want to feel overwhelmed. And that's not to say I haven't been to meetups where people are just like, here, take all of the ink samples. And as much as I want to, I've been very, deliberate and intentional about what colors I want to add to my samples. There are a few that I've inked up my pens with, and some of them I will. Like some of the blues, like, I do write with blues, brown inks, grays, and then black inks, of course, but I don't think I have any black ink samples here. I do have a couple of gray and just sort of more neutral shades, but you should be proud of yourself. Thank you. Yeah, and for me it's more so a kind of like if I can keep it to a container or somewhere where it's contained, right? Then it's easier for me to use them because I'll look at them. I can have them out. It doesn't take up too much space. And if I look at them, I will probably use them because it's always a constant visual reminder. And I do really well with visual reminders. Not so much if they're just sitting in my drawer and in my drawer and it's closed and I don't really look at it. Then it's harder for me to motivate myself or even to remember to use these inks. So if I can see them and it's not overwhelming, then I'm more likely to pull them out and just pick out a few to paint with. So I did it last week, and I thought that was really, really nice. So we're doing it again this week, and we'll see. We'll do this, I kind of like just being able to take out some ink samples because it reminds me that I have them, but also sometimes it's sort of, it's a way for me to think about the inks that I don't have, and makes it less boring, I think, instead of constantly using the inks that I have bottles of. I don't mind using the samples sometimes. You're so ready for spring. Yeah, I think we're all kind of we're all ready for warmth and gardening and things like that. So because this is dry now, it's a little bit moist there still, a little damp, but this part is fine. I will start here. Sometimes when it takes a little bit long to dry, especially if the ink is just kind of sitting in a pool, I'd take a blotter paper and just blot it a little bit. Not too much, because I still want to see the properties of the ink. I don't want to just lift everything off. But I also don't want it to sit there for like hours. So I'm going to draw on top. And what I do for drawing details on top of flowers, especially if I have a layer of different types of inks, standard, shimmer, etc., I like to use a pigment ink. And so my go-to is the Kakimori black pigment ink. Because for me, I just like how it looks sitting on top of other ink. It's still vibrant, it's still dark, it's noticeable. And I tend not to throw this ink into pens, so using it as a way to draw with makes sense for me. And then usually I use either a Kakimori dip nib, so this is a stainless steel Kakimori nib, or the Colorverse shuttle dip nib. And this I've had for 6 months or so. The Kakimori nib I've had for a lot longer, and so I'm used to and feel comfortable using it. And so that's kind of what I grab and just draw details. But I've been intentionally kind of trying to get myself to use the colorverse shuttle nib a little bit more, just to get used to the different angles and, knowing how to sort of angle it for the lines that I want. So we can use both, or if you're curious about one over the other, let me know. But they're both, they both handle inks really well, and the way that it puts down lines. It does take a little bit of practice, I think, especially for me. Just finding the different angles to hold it at to get the lines that I want when I'm drawing. When you're swatching, not so much. It's pretty simple. But when you want certain line widths, or you want to achieve a certain look, it just takes a little bit of practice, I find. So I will use the Kakimori dip nib. Just hold a lot of ink. It's quite good. It's quite good at holding ink. So I don't find that I have to dip too much. And then again, depending on how much ink you want to put down, if you're swatching or using it for like shading and sketching purposes. If you're using it for writing, then I think it would hold a lot of ink in between dips. So I think, I don't think you would have an issue with sort of just the continuous act. Thanks so much for the follow, Sofika. And thanks for being here. Welcome. Just doing a little painting and drawing with fountain pen inks. And I like to do abstract floral art. And so that's kind of my go-to. I find it very relaxing and easy to kind of go with the flow when I do this. And it's another way to enjoy inks and color and palettes, especially in an artistic or creative way. Whereas normally, with fountain pen inks, you ink up your pen and you write with it, or, if you're into drawing, you might draw with it. But painting with inks is a whole other thing. Super, super fun. And a great way to use your inks, to explore them, to enjoy them a little bit more, especially if you have shimmer inks or non-standard inks. And what I usually do is I paint with them or swatch them, and then I draw on top. But you can draw whatever you want. It doesn't have to be flowers. You can write on top if you want to, and have this sort of inks be the background. But I just find throwing ink on paper or painting with it is kind of a fun way of relieving some of that creative itch that we sometimes get. So and that's what we get. So you can see the pigment ink, when it sits on top of other inks, it just like stands out, right? It's like a kick, and I love that look. So I usually use the shading part to kind of denote like the center of a flower kind of thing. So I know where they're facing, which way they're kind of angled as well. But of course, you can use that variation and width for shadow or highlighting something. Or, if you're doing flowers, you can do it for the leaves. Or if you're into like urban sketching type of thing. Yeah, these dip nibs are great for that as well. Just in terms of the way you're angling and how much ink you're putting down. So that takes a little bit to dry. It doesn't take too long. It helps if you have a windowsill and it's the sun is shining, because otherwise sometimes it tends to take a little bit longer to dry. And it also depends on what paper you're using. So this is watercolor paper, so it does take a little bit longer to dry, just because I put a lot more ink and water onto the paper, knowing that it can handle it really well. So and it's like kind of still absorbing a little bit, the pink, but everything else, it's actually not that damp. That's pretty good. So we can draw on top of this if we want to, but I might need to blot out the pink a little bit. So let's write down the inks first. And then we'll draw on top. So if you missed it, I'm using 4 ink samples that I have of the collection of ink samples that I have. So I picked out 4 colors, and I think they're very bright, and or not bright, but like soft and spring-like. And cheery. So that's fun. They're fun colors. So we have Wearingeul Robinson Crusoe, that's the teal blue. Sailor Manyo Fuji, which is this purple blue. And then we have Montblanc Ladies Edition Pearl. And then the green is Rohrer and Klingner. Alt Goldgrün. It's a really nice green, consistent green. It's a great ink. The combos are amazing, right? Yeah. Yeah, I love these colors today too. Just seems very nice. Very cheery. I like the way that they blended together too. You can kind of see the overlap between the different colors, and they work really well together, which is something I like. It makes me want spring to be here so badly. I'm over winter. Yeah. Especially if you're in the regions where it's snowy and icy and just, you know, like you're dragging your feet through the weather. I just want it to be nice out and be outside and go on hikes and walks and be in nature and not have to, you know, be cold. Sick of the cold. That's why I was zooming in. They blended so great. Yeah. Right? They did. They look very good. I don't want to cover them up too much either. So even though I'm going over them, I'm trying not to put too much black down on the colors, because I think they're so pretty. So we'll just kind of break them up a little bit with some lines, but not too much, I hope. I just checked our weather and it looks like we're supposed to have spring the next few weeks. That's awesome. Enjoy it for sure. Yeah, I think we have some rain coming. This morning it was a little bit cold, but it's now warmed up, so that's nice. We have a little bit of rain coming as usual. That's nothing new. I don't know if we're gonna get any snow on the west coast here of BC. All right, so I'm just gonna leave that as is, I think. So it turns out that they're big flowers instead of sort of the smaller type of flowers. I think that looks great. Hi Jessie, how's it going? How have you been? Yeah, that's really nice. I like it. So let's compare to our TRP, our Tomoe River Paper painting. I try not to smudge. But yeah, look at the difference. So this is still nice, especially if you have a lot of TRP notebooks, as some of us do. Still a great way of using it up for painting. It's still drying, but you know, handles inks really, really well. This version of it anyways. And if you have some inks that have shading or other properties like shimmer, when you sort of put them down in a concentrated shape or in a blob, you tend to see a little bit more of those properties than if you were to just write with these inks. So I appreciate that, because you know, it's another way of enjoying what those inks consist of, right? How they're formulated. Yeah, it's still very pretty. So the thing with this one is that when I started with the pink, and I sort of put that down first, and then I layered on the blue teal, blue green, and the pink had already sort of dried and it wasn't super wet, so there wasn't a lot of blending, which is totally fine. I just kind of layered on top, and it does look kind of nice because, you know, you see the pink, you see the teal on top, and then the purples kind of accent color, and then the green surrounding it. Whereas with this one, because it's watercolor paper and I added water to move the colors around a little bit, I was able to blend a lot more and mix on paper. And so that's why, you know, you see the pink, you see some of the purple, some of the teal, blue, green, and then in the middle, you see a little bit more of the mixing and blending, which is really nice. Because again, if you're using these inks to ink up your pen, you're not going to experience the blending and mixing, which is totally fine. But that's one of the really great things about painting or putting ink on paper, is that you can layer and blend in ways that you can't otherwise. And so, you know, it's just kind of nice to see colors come together a little bit like this. You know, it's nothing drastic. It's still sort of lighter shades and toned down versions, but it's kind of pretty. It's a little mesmerizing, I think. I kind of stand there and just watch how, you know, they sort of pull together, and you can see where the colors separate out a little bit, but Yeah, I do like when they come together a little bit and create these areas of, what ink is that kind of game. What shade are we talking about here? So that's really pretty. And I don't think I didn't use all of the inks. I kind of went through the pink, but you don't use a lot of ink for painting. And you can, if you have some left over, you can throw it on another piece of paper or try different types of papers. I always like doing that, especially if I have a scrap, paper lying around. I always kind of play around with that as well. And let me just move this around a little so we can look at it. So there's those two. But yeah, you don't use as much ink when you're painting with it as you might think. That's all. So, when people are kind of like, oh, I don't want to waste ink, or if you're worried about going through your ink super fast, trust me, you don't use a lot when you're painting with it. I still have my samples, I only took a couple of drops or a few drops out of each sample ink vial, and I still have tons left. So it's a great practice, and it's also kind of a fun way of using up inks that you have left over in pens if you're cleaning them out because you want to move on to another color, and if you have enough in your pen that you don't want to just throw it down the drain, just throw it onto a paint palette and then use it later for painting, or just making a little bit of an inky mess or swatching them is a great way of using them too. I like the change up with the big flowers. I like it too. I wasn't expecting that. I thought I would kind of follow, the consistent, having a bunch of flowers sort of in a bunch in the bouquet. But yeah, like I said, I didn't want to cover up some of these areas where you have the inks mixing and layering together. And I thought, yeah, I'm just gonna go around. So that's what happened there. How's the flow on that Robinson Crusoe ink? It's great. I have inked it up in a pen. I had it in my SD, and it was fine. Like I didn't have any issues with dryness or anything like that. Yeah, so it was quite enjoyable. But the nib that I had in it was I think it was a Katana by Kirk from a double broad. So it does put down a wider line. But yeah, I didn't have any issues with it. I quite like this ink actually. It is bright though, so let me see I'll show you one thing. So in my currently inked, let's see. So this is my currently or notably inked swatches, and yeah, I had it here. So it is bright, and it's a light color. It's still legible, right? So I did enjoy that. And it's quite consistent as well. So it's not like you have parts where it's hard to read or anything like that. I felt like, it was quite consistent using it for drawing and for writing. But it is like a lighter shade of blue. Hopefully that helps. I also had it in my SD Aqua, which is similar to this color. So it definitely matched the pen. But yeah. What are those TRP notebooks you're using? So this one is from Galen Leather. They're based in Turkey, 52 GSM, and they're blank. So I do appreciate that for art and creative uses. They do provide guide or grid pages, so you know you can put them underneath. And I think it comes as a set. So depending on where you are and how accessible it might be to order them directly from Galen Leather. If you go to pen shows, or some US retailers may also carry them. I'm not sure if Atlas Stationers has them, or Van Ness pens maybe. But yeah, I do really like them. My favorite TRP notebooks. It's a good question. Probably these would be for art, and because they are blank, and also because they come in a variety of different sizes. So, you know, I like this size because it's standard traveler's notebook size. So you could throw it into a traveler's notebook. It's quite portable. So when I go to meetups or events, I like to take my sketchbooks with me just so people can kind of look through them and, you know, check them out. Grid notebooks, I've used Sterling ink. They're really good. I do have Hobonichi notebooks as well. The grid is a lot smaller. So, you know, that's something to consider as well. So it kind of depends on what format of the paper that you like. If it's blank, grid, dot grid, etc., lined. And then also probably the sizing. So whatever sizing sort of works for you. There are quite a lot of options in terms of who or what notebooks you can use. So I kind of appreciate that as well. Yeah, no problem, Jessie. You make me want to have so many notebooks going. Yeah, I know. Well, if you're one of those people who just kind of picks up notebooks because it's like, I like this cover, or I like this size, so I should have a few of them. And then you're wondering how to use them. One way is to paint in them, or do some sort of art, draw in them. GLP Creations, they make Tomoe River. Oh, you use them for writing, yeah. Yeah, no worries. Always happy to share. I'm trying to think. I mean, you can get small brands also provide different types of notebooks. So thinking of Sterling ink as one of them. But you know, the challenge with small shops where they sort of have these limited runs of notebooks is that they can sell out quite easily. So it just depends. I would say more in terms of like if there's a retailer close to you that has that offers like Japanese products, so TRP or even like Midori or something, you can check out what kind of brands they carry. But otherwise, yeah, it's more so like just trying to find smaller brands that might carry them as well, who still have them in stock as well, and who don't have issues with the paper, which can sometimes be a thing. So yeah, I do quite like these, but I got these a few years ago, and I got sort of a batch of them. And working through it, but once I'm done these, I don't know. I might move on to Midori paper, or, you know, see what else is there. There's also, you know, like Cosmo Air Light, similar paper to that. If you're more into smooth texture and shinier paper, and maybe thicker papers as well, but yeah, there's different options depending on what you're into. So yeah, that's kind of it. I feel like some of the past paintings I've done are, you know, darker shades, a little bit more neutrals. The past few months, if you've tuned into my currently inked streams where I do my currently inked spreads, I've just, you know, been into more neutral, darker shades. So this was my last currently inked. You can see the darker colors, blues, greens, brown, you know, and I feel like now that we're starting to get a little bit warmer weather, a little bit of a tease into spring, I'm finding naturally that I'm just drawn to more brighter, fun, cheerful colors. And that's kind of nice to go, you know, through those seasons of being drawn to certain shades. And yeah, I think it's nice too, because after I kind of paint with these fun, cheerful colors, it inspires me to ink up my pens with some of these colors as well. And, you know, it's a difference. It's a little bit of a change up, and it's kind of fun to go through the colors and think about what else I might want to throw into my pens, especially since we're in February. And so, you know, with Valentine's Day and just in general, we're getting more into like the reds and the pinks. And then as we get into spring, I don't know, I might change up my lineup of inks that I have in my pens. So it's kind of nice to paint with these types of shades, because it gets me sort of thinking about whether or not I want to use up these inks in my pens as well. Like that Robinson Crusoe is actually really, really nice. And there's a few more that, you know, if you're into pinks and mauve shades, Sailor Shikiri Yozakura is a good one. Yeah, there's quite a few pinks. Rose Quartz, Edelstein. Some purples, if you are into purple. We have so Irishizuku, Murasaki Shikibu. That's the purple. That's really nice. What else? We have some Birmingham Pen Co. I got these samples from a friend. Amber Adobe, Jasper Vein. They're kind of these nice neutral tones. Brownish. I don't know if you can see. Brownish, orangey, you know. So those are really nice too. Sailor Manyo Neko Yanagi is a nice one. If you're into this sort of dual purple blue shading ink, Neko Yanagi is a nice one as well. So yeah, so that's the Sailor Manyo Fuji is what I use today. And these types of inks are really nice in pens as well, where like the blurple, the blue and the purple type of inks, they look really nice. I really like painting with them because then you see the contrast and shading between or in the ink. So you can see like the purple, the blue coming through too. Very, very nice. And TRP does a great job of reflecting those properties as well, especially if you're just kind of putting down the inks in concentration in a concentrated way, for sure. It's kind of nice that way. But yeah, that's kind of it, friends. Unless I'm loving all these inks. Yeah, I am too. I'm really enjoying it. looks really great when you're taking photos of it too, I find. So after I finish the stream, I usually take photos for like to share when the replay goes up on Instagram. And I just find with these types of shades, the photos just look so great. And just like, it looks like I spent so much time on it, but I didn't. Literally was a super fast sort of, put down ink and then draw on top and then you move on. But when I'm taking photos of it, it just looks so great. So the colors stand out, the inks stand out, you can see shading, and the lighting is just great. Katie Bird, welcome. Thanks for the follow. I hope you're doing well. What do you have going on for the rest of the week? That's a great question. What do I have? So the kids have Friday off. It's a long weekend in Canada. We have Family Day on Monday. And so they have the day off then, as well as Friday. Tomorrow I am hosting a workshop, an online Zoom class session with the retailer Plaza Art and Tombow USA. And that's going to be fun. We're going to do a card and just do some whimsy sort of floral drawings using fine liners or mono drawing pens from Tombow. So I think a few people have signed up, but if you haven't signed up or you want to catch it as a replay, it will be on YouTube on the Plaza Art channel. And I'll share that on socials as well. So you can always, take a look and try it out yourself later when you have time. But that will be fun. So we'll do that. And then, so I don't know if I will stream next Monday just because of the holiday. So my kids will be around. But I'll let you know on socials. Most likely next Wednesday. We'll do something, fountain pen or ink art, or some journaling as well. Usually my Monday streams are journal with me kind of vibe where I do a little of memory keeping, planning, and some drawing in a planner. And then the Wednesday streams are more fountain pen ink, fountain pens related. But yeah, so next week might just be Wednesday, but we'll see. I'll keep you informed. Oh, thanks, Papa Gal. Yeah, you can catch it on YouTube. I'm just glad they'll have it available on YouTube. Because, some workshops, depending on the technical aspects of it, sometimes they're not able to release them afterwards as replays. And but this one will be on YouTube, so I'll definitely share the link afterwards. So if you're not able to catch it, or if you're not there, or you just want to rewatch it, that'll be fun. But yeah, other than that, is anyone catching the Olympics? Is anyone watching the Winter Olympics, or any of the events and sports that are related to that? But yeah, and Valentine's Day, I guess, is coming up too. So my kids made cards for everyone in their class, which is really cute. And yeah, and they're having a little Valentine's Day party tomorrow before school is out. So I actually have to pick up a fruit platter for that. So I have things I need to get done. But yeah, hopefully the weather will be great for the next little while anyways. Yeah. I've been interested in figure skating. Yeah, especially after watching the new Netflix doc on ice dancing. Yeah. I haven't watched the documentary, but I have been watching some of the figure skating, and it's just kind of crazy, isn't it? Like, yeah, it's so complicated and technical and creative and hard. Though I will say all of the winter sports are, that technical, hard, and I can't do any of them. Because yeah, I'm not going to be flinging myself off a mountain anytime soon, or, throwing myself headfirst down with a luge. Like, it's just one of those things So lots of respect for those athletes who do and can perform at that level, right? Like super professional and really, really talented. Yeah. Luge and skeleton are terrifying, right? Oh, I got caught up in, I was watching a luge event on the weekend and listening to the commentators talk about how, even just a simple scrape on the side of the ice, what that feels like for the athlete. And I was cringing. I was just like, oh, wow, what we see and what, they go through or feel is to the extreme. And it is terrifying. And I just, I could do it in my head. Like I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, I can do this. But no, I can't do anything like that. I can't, the speeds and the risk. And if something small were to go wrong, how huge that actually is, like what that feels like is terrifying. I'm just like, I'll just watch it and I'll cheer you on. Hockey's a big deal, so we'll be watching all the hockey games. Love skiing though, especially because the ski events where you see like the backdrops and some of the landscape is really, really pretty. You see the mountains in the background and snow everywhere. It's really nice to see. So that's kind of like, I watch that for the scenery and just like feeling like you're there in the environment, which is really nice. I have so much respect for these athletes. It's insane what they're willing to put their body through. And for how long, like how much practice they put into this, years and years and years, and the dedication. You were thinking all those things? Yeah, right? I've learned a lot about winter sports just by watching catching the different events and listening to the commentators talk about like what goes into each of these events and like how much thought and precision has to be taken into account. And it's mind-boggling. It blows my mind to think, right? Like how much experience they have, and yet like every little mistake or if they're feeling off and something goes wrong, how dire that is. Like it's kind of crazy. And of course you feel for the athletes that are injured or something happens and they can't compete or they don't make it, onto the podium. And it's like, it's this like, yeah, you feel for them. You want them to do their best because they've been working all their lives for it. So, as entertaining as it can be, it's also this level of, they're humans who put themselves through a lot to be there. And hopefully that, they do their best and they try. I played sports from K to 12 and I played hard. You're 43 paying for it. Yes. Yeah, some of the ones that are older, I know I've seen that too. And I think they were kind of talking about it for luge and, for other sports where they're a little bit like they're older than the average maybe. And yeah, you're kind of like, they must feel it. Like they, I want to say they're used to it, but not really, right? Like if you're injured, you're injured. But hopefully they're able to kind of move past it and however they do that mentally to get through, these tough times. But yeah, every time I kind of see like someone who's a little bit older, I'm just like, I creak just walking down the stairs. So imagine me, doing the ski jump and yeah, that would not be good. That would not be good. Or the moguls where they're kind of like they're banging their like knees or their knees kind of like keep, I don't know how physically it's possible to do these events and be fine, because yeah, my knees would just give way. Watching Lindsey Vonn, that was tough. Yeah. Yeah. You hope that she's able to compete, or to get to the place that she wants to be back in, competition and be able to do it. And yeah, it's like watching that happen too is tough because it's a lot more intense than what we see in the way that, like, obviously she feels it, and especially if there's an underlying injury, and this just like aggravates it even more, makes it worse, maybe causes new injuries. It's tough to watch, and it's tough to kind of put yourself in that spot where it's like, oof, it would be really, really hard to come back from. But somehow athletes do it, right? Like, they've put their body through injury and recovery, and hopefully they're able to do it quickly, and in a way that's, that they're okay and that they can continue doing what they love. Because for some reason, these athletes love to push themselves, they have that drive, and not all of us do, especially at that level. But they have this drive, and I hope they just, they're able to fulfill what it is that they want to get out of these types of events. Especially if they make it. Like, it's one thing to get on the podium and win a medal. It's another to just be there, right? Like, even if you get through and you don't qualify for the finals, just to be there, to be considered an Olympian athlete, that level in itself is like, wow. Mm-hmm. She should be proud of how hard she worked. Yeah, from all the surgeries. A lot of those athletes, right? The things that they had to endure to get to where they are now. It's, it's a lot. But if you do, I think it's one more week of competition, right? I think next week might be the last week, or it wraps up. So yeah, if you do watch it, I hope you catch the events that you want to see. And if you're just kind of watching what's on, and learn about the different winter sports that, like all the ins and outs, and how hard these events are for these athletes. It's very interesting. I kind of like learning about all the different sports, knowing that I would never do them, especially at my age. But it's really interesting to watch other people do it, athletes do it, and finding out like how they're able to navigate those different sports and master them. It's very interesting. But I will stick to my stationery and my creative hobbies because they are relatively safe. I'm not going to drink the ink or stab myself with a fountain pen nib anytime soon, I hope. So I'll be here doing this. Yeah, I think that's it, friends. I'm going to log off, but thank you so much for joining, for being here, for watching, for lurking, for watching replays. If I see you tomorrow at the workshop, we'll have fun. I'm excited. I can't wait. Otherwise, I'll see you on the socials at From Corolla. I'm always happy to connect. And yeah, have a blast with the class. Thanks so much, friend. And have a lovely weekend. Take it easy. Take care of yourself. Take care of others. Make time to play with stationery. Make time for your hobbies. And do what you love. Take out those stationery supplies that we all have and play with them, explore them, and kind of push yourself too, to have fun. Appreciate you all. Bye, friends. Have a good week. Have a good weekend. Yes, you still need to test it out. Oh, thank you so much, Angela. Have a good one, friends. Bye.